do the Pledge of Allegiance. Amen. We stand as we read the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we want to recognize Ms. Murchison for the public comment.
Mr. Chair, may I just make one comment to everybody? I know we have a pretty large group signed up tonight for public comments. What I'm going to do is put a clock on everybody, and when the 3 minutes is up, everybody's allocated 3 minutes. That 3 minutes is up, the buzzer will go off. And it's also policy of the Board of Ed
Yes.
that there's a 30-minute period for speakers. So I just wanted to make note of that up front for everybody.
And we don't respond back immediately to the public comment. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Margaret Murchison, a native of Sanford. I am a graduate of W.B. Wicker School, and I am currently serving as president of the W.B. Wicker School Alumni Association, and we are planning for our next biannual reunion scheduled October. On behalf of the alumni, we applaud your decision to build the next elementary school on the Wicker School site, resulting in a tremendous savings to the taxpayers of Lee County. I have been disappointed by the negative comments heard recently about it being a bad choice because of crime in the area. Crime has no respect of school zone, community, or person. If anyone can show me a crime-free area in Lee County, I will show you heaven. Not only am I a graduate of Wicker School, I'm a product of the community. I walked to school for 12 years. Wicker was a little bit of heaven for us. It kept our community together, and the only crime was skipping school for just a few hours to play cowboys and Indians on the hill behind the school, or to slip to Groves' store to get a fried bun. Nobody wanted to be absent from school because it was like family, from the teachers to the custodians to cafeteria workers. We were family, and all of us protected our school and community. We hope to be given the opportunity to protect it again. I can't for the life of me understand why you would select a site so riddled with crime, and I can't understand why it was not brought up during the campaign and election season. Therefore, I sincerely hope you will move forward with your approved plans. I have a gift for each of you, and I would like to ask Ms. Barbara Partridge or Ms. Fannie Hedden to come and help me distribute the gift that I have for you. And no, I do not have a weapon in this bag. I do have a gift for the school board members. Ms. Hedden, would you come and help me, please? We have a journal for each of you on the history of Wicker School, and we hope that you can read it and enjoy it and find out why the school is like a little bit of heaven to us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next person is Betty Daniel.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
First of all, Margaret has already told you what it's about, so I'm just going to go into who I am. I'm Betty Daniel. I graduated. I am alumni from W.B. Wicker. Also, like Margaret, I walked to school in the community for 12 years. So I can tell you it was safe then, and I feel it's safe now. But these are my comments that I'd like for you to consider. We as a community voted for this school board to make decisions for our community. Prior to the November election, a decision was made on the site for the new elementary school for Lee County. Now that we have new board members, the issue of safety has become an issue of concern and contention. My concern is that an incident occurred almost 34 years ago this year is now being racially profiled, and this community is now being racially profiled and deemed as unsafe site for the new school. Although we now have CCC Dental School, a daycare, and an old gym for recreational basketball in that area. My concern also would be, what is the new member's hidden agenda? We have crime in every community, but based on the facts stated in our Sanford Herald, the crime rate is not as great as one would have us think. We need to come together as a community, accept what our school board has given us, because I feel like it is a good decision. And I feel like that the kids would grow in that area and even learn in that area. I mean, we need growth in that area. And I feel like this would help that community. Also, our community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to recognize Jim Womack, Mr. Womack.
My name is Jim Womack. I live at 1615 Boone Trail Road in Sanford. And I'm here tonight to share some professional expertise and suggestions about major decisions you have to make in selecting a site and plans for this new elementary school. When I was just a 19-year-old sophomore at West Point, one of my core classes covered the subject of deliberate decision-making. This fundamental process for decision-making is taught at schools all over this nation. To this day, I marvel at how highly educated people often make indefensible decisions, even in the face of overwhelming facts opposing those decisions. Now, if this board were to take a few weeks to gather the facts and the opinions of the community at large about site selection for a new elementary school in a transparent and welcoming process, I believe you would learn a lot. All you've accomplished so far is to allow politics and a handful of well-placed influencers shape what you must know is a questionable decision to put an elementary school in a questionable location. Former school board member John Bernardi concluded back in 2013 that the Jonesboro campus was the best site for a new elementary school. He may have been correct. You already own that site. It's a very safe and secure location. It sits adjacent to the bypass for ease in getting cars and buses quickly to and from school. With a minor road project, this school site would be the most accessible school site in the community. Now, if it was my decision, and I knew I would be held accountable for the consequences for the next 30 years, I would open this decision-making process up to public opinion, early and often. First, I would announce the specific purpose and intent for the school. You still haven't done that, hinting that it might be an elementary school, or that it might be a combined elementary and magnet or charter school, or elementary and STEM school. Make up your minds about what you're going to use it for, and tell the community, and then make that the basis of your decision-making. Next, I would conduct a series of well-publicized public hearings to gather information I didn't already have. Then I would select the top 3 or 4 sites of building options, eliminating costs and risks for each site. That would be the right time to bring in your architect to prepare schematic drawings and layouts for each prospective site. That's also the time to perform geospatial analysis of the several options to identify which children and families are going to be impacted. Note, you still haven't done that even for the Wicker School. After careful and logical consideration of all the options, you can then make a wise decision about which site and building plan to pursue. And it might be the Wicker School. You can present your course of action analysis and decision to the public, defending the rationale with facts and fiscal justification. When you go through a professional process like this, transparently and openly, you will justify your decision to all the naysayers. You will know that you've done the right thing based on the facts. If you fail to do this, you will hear about it endlessly, and your decision will be the subject of ridicule for decades to come. Thank you.
Next person is Brandy Martin.
Good evening, school board. I'm here as a parent representing a student at East Lee, as well as several other parents and students at East Lee. There is a serious discipline problem at East Lee Middle School. I have found out that there are several bullying incidents, my son being one of them. He's been bullied at least 4 times that I know of at that school. There are several incidents where there's been weapons involved at that school. However, it's been covered underneath the school policy, and several students have only received 10 days of suspension. I was under the impression that when weapons are brought at school, that's automatic expulsion. There's been one as recent as last week where a bus driver found a knife on a student in the afternoon school route. I have a parent had sent me text messages being rather concerned about this. Her daughter was sending her scare text messages, and then a school or a bus-wide letter was sent from the school saying it was taken care of and the problem's been solved and swept under the rug. My son alone, as I said, has experienced 4 times of being bullied. One's been on the bus. When I've addressed it twice, that's been taken care of. But now it's been escalated in his social studies class and his science class. In his science class, he's been sprayed with perfume. Now, granted, he is not allergic to anything, but if he was allergic to something, that would have really harmed him. Or if he had asthma, it would have really harmed him. He had his book knocked down when he told the student to pick it up. The student said, "I did it by accident," walked away. The teacher intervened and said, "Go pick up that book." Now, this has been a student that, from my understanding, has had several incidents where he spent in ISS, which I have found out to Eastleigh Middle School, ISS is like a student vacation. I work at Harnett County Schools. I'm a TA in Harnett County Schools. We have an ISS, and from my understanding, the ISS there is not vacation. The students have to turn in work. The work is turned in by the person who's in charge of ISS, and then therefore it's turned in to the teachers. From my understanding, the kids at Eastleigh Middle School thinks it's vacation. They can do whatever they want. In fact, most of them hope they get ISS because they're able to do whatever they want. My son is currently failing 8th grade. This is his last year. He told me 2 weeks ago he wants to hurry up and get to Lee County High School because he knows he has a brother there who will be a junior next year. He has a cousin there who will be a senior next year, and he knows if the administration doesn't do anything, at least his brother will be there, his brother's friends will be there, and his cousin and his cousin's friends will be there. And it's really heartbreaking to know that my son does not feel safe at school, that I'm pretty sure other students do not feel safe at school, and I'm almost willing to bet the faculty members at that school do not feel safe at school. And I'm just wondering, when is the board going to start getting involved? Thank you.
Martha Underwood.
My name's Martha Underwood, and I would like to honor the good history of the Black people in Sanford. There are tremendous success stories, such as the Black hospital dietary worker who invented and patented his early version of a microwave oven. A major corporation had to purchase his patent in order to begin mass production of microwaves. So I tell you, shout your good stories. I applaud W.B. Wicker School, a Rosenwald school built in the 1920s to educate Black children. Repurposing and rejuvenating it is a nice idea. The one in Dunn now benefits youth recreation. The school is renovated into senior apartments with Central Carolina Community College facility next door and a bus stop for everyone's convenience. Creative community unity will find a way for us too. There are 3 topics tonight that I asked the BOE to plan for the Wicker site. First, the large size of the elementary school. Putting 5 to 10-year-old students ages together in a school of 900 to 1,000 is overwhelming to little children. According to experts, this is way too big for an elementary school. How are you going to feed all these kids in the cafeteria at midday? Why are you proposing it to be a STEAM school, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and arts, for children so young? Neither the kids nor their parents
know the full scope of their abilities and interests at that tender age. Secondly, drop-off and pick-up traffic of so many kids would be a nightmare for parents who don't want their child to ride a school bus. I struggle at times with Tranmere Elementary School traffic backed up onto US 1 past Walgreens Drug. Traffic will be worse at Wicker with a much larger student population. I once taught at a junior high school where a mother picking up her daughter was killed in a car wreck within 1,000 feet of the school. Consequently, I checked the numbers of auto wrecks within 1,000 feet of Wicker School. In 2016, there were 30 such accidents, and that's before school congestion will be added. Between January 1 and March 5th of this year, there were 7 auto wrecks plus 1 hit and run within 1,000 feet of the school. I attended that funeral in 1981, and I never want to go through that community horror again. Thirdly, the contract to hire an architect on tonight's agenda will pay 7% to him of the cost of the school with no spending limit.
Miss Underwood. Time.
Thank you.
The next person is Ed Underwood.
Good evening. My name is Ed Underwood. I've been in Sanford here for a long, long time. I was born on Vance Street, up there near the corner of Bracken Street. That was quite a few years ago. And I'm back in town now, came back about 10 years ago. I am one of the ones that's concerned about the choice of the location and the safety of the location of an elementary school there on South Vance Street at W.B. Wicker School location. For one thing, I have driven around there a few times, and I drove over there by tonight and came up Pershing Street, which is just one block to the west of Vance Street, and goes up right behind the Wicker School property. And within 500 feet of the Wicker School property, there's a commercial building there, the front of which is on Wicker Street. But I was looking at the side of it along Pershing Street there, and it has just been trashed. It's been beat up. It's been vandalized. Windows are broken. Gutters have been torn off. The downspouts ripped off, and things like this. It's a great mess, and probably more than half the windows are broken, some of which have been patched up with a little bit of sheet plastic over the hole in the glass. But it's really, really a mess. And I'm concerned also about the gym and or the auditorium there. They have been pretty well trashed as well, vandalized. I've seen photographs published in the last couple of days of the pretty parts of the Wicker School building out in front of the thing, but I have not seen any pictures at all of the trashed auditorium and so forth back there. I would ask you to strictly, very seriously consider the safety of the location of this place for a new school. Thank you very much.
The next person is Councilman J.D. Williams.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. I'm J.D. Williams. I live at 3412 Evers Avenue, right here in the city of Sanford. I am an alumni of W.B. Wicker School. I graduated, I think it was sometime in the 60s. So, I'm here speaking in support of the board and the decisions that you all made to convert Wicker School into a elementary school. From what I'm reading in the paper, there are times when people are talking about how unsafe the school is, but not trying to throw anybody under the bus. I can remember a young lady getting killed at one of our institutions of higher learning. It didn't close it down. As a matter of fact, it just got better. I think it's the right decision I'm just here to show my support. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person is Ms. Darian Poe, the chairman of the Board of Commissioners.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman and fellow board members and Superintendent Bryan for giving me a couple of minutes to speak. I don't think it could be a more fitting place for me to be tonight, based on our family situation, than for me to be addressing the school board. I'm here tonight to encourage you to move forward. Contrary to what a few people have brought up on this issue, I feel like your board has done its due diligence, as has ours. And this has been a topic of discussion for almost 2 years. You have weighed the options, and we support your decision. As we have completed the sale of the bonds with CCCC and have the funds available now, and I understand you'll be discussing this later tonight. But again, I would encourage you to move forward with this phenomenal project for our community. As I've gone out and talked to people over the last year or so, as we got more serious about this idea, it was met with overwhelming support from across the county. It's a great idea, and it's an asset. And I encourage you to move forward. I cannot say that in any other different ways. Stepping away from my position as chair, and on a personal note, listening tonight, there have been a lot of speakers that mentioned safety. And as a parent and as a citizen of Lee County, what I am afraid of, what my fear is, that has come to light with this issue, is the type of bigotry and meanness that has come out from certain people on this issue, and the credence that has been given from some people. I think we all need to examine ourselves and look at what's been put before your board and some of the things that my board has heard, and understand that that type of thinking does not belong in Lee County. And we need to move forward and show people the type of community we really are. Thank you.
Thank you. And at this time also, I wanted to register the board's condolence to the Darianpu family for Mr. Darianpu, who served on this board for almost 30 years. And we all will miss him, and we all want to say to the family, Amy and your family, we want to say thank you for the service that your family have rendered to this community. Thank you. At this time, we will have our mission read by Mr. Kelly.
It is the mission of Lee County Schools that we will teach each student the social and academic skills needed to be responsible and a productive citizen.
We want to read our code of ethics for the school board members, which is policy 2120. It's right there on the screen for you. The board recognizes that collectively and individually, all members of the board must adhere to and accept code of ethics in order to improve public education. Members of the Lee County Board of Education should avoid conflict of interest, appearance of conflict of interest as we handle the work of the board, avoid solicitation and or acceptance of gift in return for advice or assistance on matter concerning the operation of the business of the board, avoid the misuse of public fund, avoid misrepresentation or falsification of facts, and avoid making confidential information public. The board accept the code of ethics established by North Carolina School Board Association. Thank you. At this time, I would like a motion for the approval of the agenda for March 13th.
Mr. Chairman, before we entertain that motion, I would like to make a motion that we amend the agenda as presented. And I would request that we move the audit contract, which is now under the consent agenda, and place that as item number 4 under new business.
Okay.
That motion comes from committee, so it shouldn't need a second. It was on the minutes of our finance committee meeting for that to be placed under new business. It was just misplaced on the consent agenda.
Okay, it's properly entered. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a point of order. Today, our agenda is out of order for a specially called meeting. We have both of our policies, 2300 and 2340, clearly state the purpose of a special meeting. We are only to attain to something that cannot be done at a regular meeting. I also point to reference of the exhibits that I presented to the board and have copies for the community out there as well. This was called as a special meeting, and with that being said, it is in violation of our North Carolina General Statutes. It's in violation of our school board policies, 2300, 2340, and the Robert Rules of Orders. And my question is, with children in our schools as well, they have policies to abide by. I truly believe our board should do this as well. Anything that is done today, considering through the North Carolina, after legal assistance from the North Carolina State Board of Education, anything done today would be considered invalid as well if it's not something that is appropriately put on a special agenda. Some of the things for requirements for a special agenda, just for the purpose of the community at large out there, is we are to convene during a special meeting only to consider items that deal with matters that may rise between the regular meetings and before the next regular meeting. So I'll make a move that we suspend the rest of this meeting's agenda and adjourn, deferring all matters until the April 2017 regular scheduled meeting.
I don't know if I will ask for a motion, but I will recognize the board's attorney if he wants to say something on what she just said.
There's a motion on the floor. Point of order, sir.
We want to.
And in fact, Mr. Chairman, my motion was made first, so we need a vote on my motion before we consider that motion.
That is correct.
Okay. I need what do you call it? Since we have a motion on the floor, we want a second for.
The motion coming from committee does not require a second. It would need a voice vote to carry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The motion carry
All
as
opposed?
proposed.
Yes.
The motion carry as proposed. Okay.
Now for consideration, second motion.
For the consideration of the second motion,
Would you like me to repeat the motion?
no, just repeat. Yeah. State
I
your
would like to
motion
repeat my
again.
motion. I make a motion that we suspend today's specially called meeting and abide by our own school policies and the North Carolina Rules of Government as well. My motion is that we suspend the rest of the meeting's agenda and adjourn, deferring all matters until our April 2017 regular meeting.
A second for your motion? The motion dies since there is no second. Mr. Love, I want to recognize you. Mr. Love is our board attorney.
As to the motion, as to whether or not you can have a regular or special meeting, under 115C 41B, it says this: a board may elect to hold a regular meeting and to meet in special session upon call of the chairman or the secretary after, as often as the board of business, school business of the local administrative unit may require. In this case, the chairman of the board called a special meeting and gave notice to everybody. And there's a quorum here, so I say you can conduct the business. And also there are cases which say that a county board of education can exercise its power in a regular or special meeting attended by a quorum. So you have a quorum, and my opinion is that you can exercise whatever business you have on your agenda, and the fact that it's action is taken in a special meeting, I think can be done legally.
I don't think we're in violation anyway. Thank you, Mr. Law, for your counsel. We want to move forward to the approval of the minutes of January 10 and the
Point of order. We have to approve the agenda as presented, or as amended.
as amended. I'm sorry about that. Let's go ahead and a motion.
A motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The aye carry.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of 1/10/2017 and 2/14/2017.
Second.
The motion is made and is seconded. All in favor, say
Aye.
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 All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is approved. Okay. At this time, we'll go to the next thing on our agenda will be the chairman's report. I will call on Dr. Foster, Jim Foster, the chairman of the ABC board, to come here and speak to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Jim Foster, chairman of the Sanford City ABC Board. 3 or 4 years ago, the North Carolina ABC Commission started a campaign to reduce underage drinking in North Carolina. One part of the campaign has been a series of commercials that you may have seen on TV called Talk It Out, that encourages parents to have a conversation with their children about the dangers of underage drinking. The other part of the campaign focuses on programs that we're prepared to offer in the schools. Captain Ray Bullard with the Sanford Police Department has been to Charlotte, where a class designed for grades 6, 7, 8, and 9 is being taught by ABC officers there in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools in health classes. Captain Bullard has shown a preview of one of those classes to the ABC board, and we liked it. He has also shown a preview of one of the lessons to Chairman Iconosho, Superintendent Bryan, and Dr. Johnny Waller, and so we are prepared to offer this program to the schools of Lee County. Tonight, we want Captain Bullard to share the program with you, and if you are interested, the Community Policing Unit of the Sanford Police Department will be teaching the classes. Captain Tony Hancock and Sergeant Greg Deck will be doing most of the teaching. The Sanford ABC system will sponsor the program, so there will be no cost to the schools. We just need your okay. Now Captain Ray Bullard will come and tell you about the class that we would be offering if you so approve. Ray.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity. I have a brief presentation to show you. This is an example from Charlotte's presentation that goes into the 6th grade in all their middle schools. It starts with a Cahoots. I know several of you are probably familiar with the Cahoots. That's an interactive testing program that's built just on alcohol, basically some statistics on alcohol and things of that nature to get the get the kids interactive. All the kids have laptops or sometime a smart device that they can go on to the Kahoot, to the Cahoots and participate. It incorporates the public service announcements of the Talk It Out NC that we spoke of. And I don't know why the volume's not on.
It's never too early to talk with your kids about the dangers of alcohol.
Look what I have for you.
But it can be too late.
Sites and stuff. This is from the Talk It Out NC, which
Just
is
a little.
sponsored by
Today's the day to start the conversation and stop underage drinking. TalkItOutNC.org.
It goes into a slide presentation asking the students, what do you see here? Most of the students will respond, you see underage people drinking, having a good time, things of that nature. They go into what happens next. The other side of the story, if you start underage drinking, of course, it's a gateway. It can lead to other drugs. Social unacceptance. You'll start having problems with your peers. You'll be alienated. You start having problems at home with your parents. More consequences. Of course, hospitalization, arrest, or even death. Then it leads into another Talk It Out NC public service announcement.
But perhaps the worst one of all can start deep in the brain. When the signal that tells the body to keep breathing just stops. Take a deep breath and start having the conversations that can stop underage drinking. Visit talkitoutnc.org.
I guess you can say influence comes in all shapes and sizes. It can push you around and make you feel stupid. It can pressure you to do things you're not really into. And to try to fit in no matter what. It's when you start to recognize the influences around you that you can stand up and just be yourself. My name's Gina, and this is what Above the Influence means to me.
They talk about how youth should say no, whether to be a passive, aggressive, or assertive. They do a little bit of role playing, have the students come up and pretend that somebody's trying to offer them alcohol and how they should say no and how they should look the person in the eye. They do a little small skit with that. Of course, here are the characteristics you want to use to be assertive. They explain that to them. This is part of the presentation they also do where they're warning kids about the new designer beers that are on the market and talk about those. If you don't know about them, the one that's in the bottom right-hand corner there that looks like a Powerade drink or some kind of fruity drink you can buy at the store, that's actually a malt liquor that's 14% alcohol by volume. You can look at it. If you've got kids, you can look at it and see that that is targeted to attract our youth to drink that. That's $2.50 in the pantry. That's a 22 or 24-ounce can of alcohol. So they talk about that a little bit. Then they do an activity with what we call drunk goggles. Some of you may have seen them. That's a pair of goggles you can put on that give you the effects of being impaired. We're prepared to bring those into the schools. They do different activities with the kids. Have a kid come up and write his name on the board, put the goggles on, have him write the name again to see the difference and some things of that nature. Again, those will be provided.
These are your grandmother's earrings. She always wanted you to have them. Ah, it looks beautiful. And a corsage from my princess.
It's never too early to talk with your kids about the dangers of alcohol. But it can be too late. Today's the day to start the conversation and stop underage drinking. TalkItOutNC.org.
They go into the behavior risk for early drinking, for binge drinking, to violent behaviors, alcohol-related accidents, driving. Actually, our youth are some of the biggest binge drinkers we have because they're at home with their parents 6 days a week, and then on a Friday night they get to go out with their friends, and that's when they consume all the alcohol that they'll consume. So they talk about binge drinking, things of that nature. Then they show some statistics. This is for Charlotte-Mecklenburg, that 3 out of 4 middle school students are not drinking alcohol. Basically, to show the kids that, you know, the ones that are drinking alcohol are not the in group, they're the out group, basically. So don't feel like you had to be part of the crowd. And then they give them a homework assignment to go home and interview one of their family members about underage drinking. And this is just to start the conversation between the student and the parent about underage drinking. And that's pretty much an example of
A lot of
that's the
bad
6th
decisions
grade
get made when teens drink alcohol.
presentation that the officer
But perhaps the
would
worst
actually
one
take
of
to the
all
schools and
can
show
start
to the
deep in the
kids,
brain,
and do the activities with.
when the signal that tells the body to keep breathing.
For the 7th grade, there's one for the
Just
8th grade,
stops.
and they even have one for the 9th grade that they would do, you know, upon request if a
Take a
teacher
deep
wanted
breath
to come in the 9th grade. But they
and
really
start having the
concentrate on the 6th,
conversations
7th, and 8th
that
grade
can stop underage
to do it.
drinking.
And each year it gets
Visit
a little more aggressive,
talkitoutnc.org.
and a little more to the point. Any questions I can answer?
Yeah.
So this is one time a year per class,
Yep.
or what class are we thinking about? PE, English, health?
Well, what they do is they come into the health program and
Okay.
have it coincide with when they're talking about alcohol and drugs.
Okay.
And all the schools that they're doing in, it's a one block session, 40 minutes, an hour, however long they're blocked in.
But it's a single day,
One single-
coinciding
one
with
same-
the
yeah.
curriculum at hand.
Yes.
Sir, do you have any volunteers like the previous students or young children who's been subjected to this type of thing that can also come in and talk to them as well?
That's something we could probably find. It's something we really don't have right now. We've just got this presentation, and we want to have it, if it's approved by the board, we're going to have it tailored a little bit more for Lee County. We have people that are going to do that, and you know, then that's the things I think we could add, definitely could add, because I think kids really pick up on it if someone their own age is telling a personal experience instead of an adult telling them about it.
Yes, sir.
Well, what's the longevity of your program? I remember when we had the DARE program for a long time, and then it went away. This is being supported by the ABC board?
Yes, sir, it is.
Well, what's the initial time frame? 4 years, 5 years?
As of right now, it's been in a little over 4 years in Charlotte-Mecklenburg, and it's still going strong.
Okay.
The more they do it, the more requests they get to do it. They're actually having civic groups and churches and PTAs and things of that requesting their officers to come do this presentation for the adults, you know, or for kids that are homeschooled or things of that nature. The longevity of this would be as long as the board will allow it and as long as the ABC Commission is willing to fund it. And I think they would be committed to it as long as you would be committed to it.
Mr. Coburn, if I may add a point to that, Captain Buller and I have spoken, and our plan is to do an evaluation of the program from the very beginning, and we have some folks that we have that we can work with that can do that for us as we go year to year.
Well, I'd like to bring up one more point on that. When I spoke with, I believe it was Tracy Carter at the time, I asked why the DARE program wasn't continued. And the answer was that they couldn't see results, or someone in the legislature couldn't see results, which is not an answer that I really accepted, because the results are what you don't see. In this situation, what sort of evaluation are we talking about?
First off, we're going to look at some content knowledge for kids and how much they've learned pre and post. That's where we're going to start with things, because we think that that's an important place for us, about just being knowledgeable about the different things that are out there, and some of the consequences of those things that if they partake of them.
And the very reason why I was sold on this is because I've attended their meeting. It was not very easy to go to because they hold their meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I was there, and Mr. Foster and Mr. Powell and Mr. Keller, both of them are on the board, and the superintendent, myself, and Dr. Waller, we have to be there very, very early. One thing I saw there is anything that will, first of all, help the community, the children, to feel comfortable with our officers when they're teaching this class.
Yeah.
It's very good for our children.
Yeah.
And then the next thing, because the officers get to know them, they get to know the officers, and we get to work together. The primary thing that first took me to them was they have a lot of scholarships that goes every year without being claimed. They couldn't find people in our community to apply for scholarship and write one-page essay to get a scholarship from ABC. And when I heard about that, I said, I will come out and listen to come and talk to the board. So we're working on that. If any of you sitting here tonight have a family or a child in 12th grade, they can apply for the scholarship because money is there just going away every year in our community that people are not claiming. So I want to allow...
If there's no further questions, I make a motion that we approve the state program.
I believe it's under new business.
It's under new business.
I was wondering why we're talking
You
about
go
something.
ahead and do that later. So
Sir, I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
The North Carolina Talk It Out program, they prefix it by saying parental involvement. That's why they originally came out with these movies and things, and they're excellent. I love them. I really do. As an emergency medicine PA, I've seen some of these traumatic things as well. My question is, how is the parents involved, or are they involved at all during this process that's at the school?
The only thing I would think the parents would be involved in, minus one of them, requesting to be involved in it, is where the students actually have to go home and interview a parent, a family member, or something, to get them to start talking about, the effects of underage drinking.
How hard would it be, as opposed to the parent having to request that something be sent out that said, please come do this? Are you offering for them to come in as well? Because statistics have proven time and time again, the more there's more parental involvement, you have a higher success rate. And I know that's very difficult to do sometimes. But my question is, since the way the program was presented to me previously, it started for parents to be able to talk to their children. And I know it's worked in my family when we've seen these commercials and things. So how hard would it be for this part of the program that they would actually solicit volunteers from the families that might come in and talk or work with the children and the program at the same time?
And I don't really see where that would be a problem. From a parenting standpoint, I feel like my kids would be more honest if I were not there. When the student, when the police officer's asking, hey, how many of y'all have, tried marijuana by show of hands, or, or alcohol? That's just my personal experience. I think my kids would be a little more honest with the officers. I do get your point where my kid is not going to come up to me and start talking to me about underage drinking. That's something I'm going to have to do to him. But hopefully this will spur the child on to go home and make that conversation start happening with his parent. And again, that's up to whether the school board would want parents coming in, because I know a lot of it is having the kids talk about to the officers or to one another about personal experiences, or
Thank you, Captain. If we don't have any other further question, I don't know if Mr. Foster.
I'd just like to make a couple of comments.
Okay.
I failed to mention that I'm here with fellow board member Bobby Powell and with our general manager Lee Dowd. But last year, what we did was we went and hired an outside speaker who came and conducted some underage drinking programs in several of the high schools and several of the middle schools in kind of a school-wide assembly. And this year we decided to take a different tack and go directly into the classrooms. Now, one other thing that you might be interested in is the ABC Commission over the last few years has put together a rather extensive speakers bureau, people that can come and speak to school-wide audiences or to a parent group at a PTA meeting. And if any of the principals are interested in that kind of program for their school, if they'll get in touch with Lee Dowd at the ABC office, we'll try to arrange a speaker that would fit those needs. And again, we would try and sponsor that program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to be voting on it under the new business. At this time, I want to recognize Ms. Bowen, who attended a conference, and she wants to share something with us.
I won't take a great deal of time. I got the opportunity to do some professional development at the North Carolina School Board Association Friday a week ago, and I was just really moved by this program. I thought it was one that, if funding were no option, that it would be an excellent program for all of our teachers to get involved in. It was on bridging the gap between poverty and generational poverty in education. And I don't think that we would be wrong in saying that we recognize that poverty is one of the biggest challenges that we face to education. And so it was looking at the way the curriculum can bridge that gap and to meet students where they are. And there were just several quotes that were stated, and I thought, you know, this is really a platform that I wish we could get out to our students. Couple of things. It says, you know, diversity for diversity's sake is really pointless. That the difference between diversity and inclusion in the educational process is that diversity is getting an invitation to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. I took that, you know, and said, you know, there's some real power in that. That it's one thing just to be in a diverse classroom. It's another to feel that your interests and your perspective have a role to play in that classroom. And I just thought that was really neat. And then one other one that stuck with me, and it says, if and when you get a seat at the table and then refuse to use your voice, you can never complain when you become the meal. And I thought, you know, I think that's something all people in our educational system need to take a moment and think about. We have to speak for the qualities. We have to speak for the inequalities. We have to speak for what is good in our educational system, because if we sit and focus on the negative, we can lose sight of all the great things we're doing. And if we don't have high expectations for everyone, then we let some fall through the cracks. And that's just not what I joined the Board of Education to do. I was just really moved by this particular program. It's put on by two wonderful ladies out of South Carolina. They said farm girls gone to college and made good. And it was just a really, really neat presentation. They're the resource organizations. Definitely something that if you're an organization, you could benefit from listening to these ladies talk. And again, it was bridging the gap between poverty and between education and generational poverty. But nonetheless, I appreciate the board's allowing me to pursue this particular training. And it was just phenomenal, and I wanted to take a moment to report on what I learned and also say thank you to this board and to the county for allowing me to go. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ms. Bowen, for sharing that with us. We all know that when everybody get involved in education and we give people a seat at the table, when I ran for school board, I said I was going to come to the school board to speak for those ones who have no seat at the table. We're not here for politics. We're here to help our children get education. The next thing I want to share with us is about the budget process that is going on the 16th at 5 p.m. at the central office. We'll be having the budget session for this year, 5 p.m. If you want to come, I want to invite all of you to come to the budget session, and then on the 19th we'll have a public hearing about our budget. So you want to come, we all want everything out there is transparent, so we want to invite you to come. In absence of anything that I want to share with you, I want to ask the superintendent to give his report at this time.
I'd like to ask Dr. Jim Atkinson to come forward, please, for our Clean School of the Month Award.
Good evening again. This is a monthly award that we give out to our Clean School of the Month, and this month's winner is going to be Sandley Middle School. Ms. Bridges could not be here tonight, nor could Ms. Cox, but I think we have a representative here from Sandley Middle School.
So thank you guys so much.
Thank you for what you do.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Well deserved. Our Superintendent Extra Effort Award attendee could not be here tonight, so I'm going to go to the accountability update. Our students have taken the ACT at the end of February, and we've also been doing accountability benchmarks at the high school and middle school level. We're at different levels with all that. Our lead teachers are analyzing data and working with teachers. And during February, we also took the ACT work keys. So we're in that transition time between winter and spring. Our teachers are working really hard to refine lessons and work with students in the classroom. And we are very appreciative of our teachers and all the hard work that they're putting in. Concludes my report, Mr. Akinosha.
Thank you. At this time, we will go to the committee reports, and the first one will be Dr. Livingston.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. The Middle School Curriculum and Instructions Committee met on February the 22nd at Bragg Street Academy. Mrs. Jolanda Jordan stated that it was the first time the C&I committee meeting had been held at her school. She and her staff were elated to have the opportunity to host the meeting. Dr. Andy Bryant commented on the Lee County United Wrestling Program that is now part of the middle school's curriculum, and the program was highlighted in the Inspire magazine. Dr. Bryant also spoke briefly on the second semester evaluation, the data analysis, and the benchmark at the middle school. Ms. Jordan introduced Mrs. Darlene McDowell, who was the best practice presenter. Her topic was lesson plans and how the middle school is incorporating AVID and PSYOP practices along with the Marzano strategies. Dr. Bryan continued to seek input from committees on the district's strategic plan. Our board chair, Mark Akinosha, has requested feedback on the proposed implementation of having monthly work sessions instead of our current 4 subcommittee meetings. John Conway facilitated that discussion. Afterwards, the middle school principals and staff gave it a thumbs down. The next Curriculum and Instructions Committee meeting will be held on March the 15th at 3:30 at J.R. Ingram Elementary School, followed by the high school curriculum C&I meeting on April the 5th at Southern Lee High School. I will report my final C&I work session recommendations at the next school board meeting. Mr. Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you. At this time, I want to call on Dr. Smith for Facility and Technology.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The F&T Committee met on February the 28th. The first item on our agenda was the Greenwood Elementary Wastewater System. We heard a report from Steve Janowski, who is an engineer with Rivers and Associate. He presented in detail the bids for the Greenwood Elementary School Force Main, which in fact means that we plan to tie that to the public, to the City of Sanford wastewater treatment, which will solve that problem. After discussion, it was a consensus of the committee to instruct Hyde and Associates to prepare the contract and award the bid to Sandhills Contractors Incorporated on a unit price basis not to exceed $698,000, $412.69. That contract could not be prepared in time for tonight's meeting, so that will be on our April meeting. We also heard a Eagle Scout service project, very ambitious project, I might add, to be conducted at the Children's Center, Floydale Night. It was a consensus of the committee to approve the Eagle Scout service project presented by Travis Bottom, which is construction of a deck with a ramp on the pod at the Floydale Night Center that will provide a second exit for the children around the new pod that we added recently at Floydale Night. The cost is $2,500. He plans to raise that money by himself, which is a pretty ambitious project. And that you'll find that under tonight's consent agenda, contributions and donations. We also heard a report from Jennifer Allen, who is a principal at Floydale Night. They would like to add a concrete sidewalk to the playground area at Floydale Night. The committee voted to bid the contract to Carter concrete works in the amount of $1,560. And Jennifer Allen plans to raise her PTA funds to pay for that. We had a brief discussion on the retirement of Coach Charlie Spivey, baseball coach. After 34 years and 2 state championships, we felt like some recognition would be in order, and we're waiting on some advice from Board Attorney Mr. Love to give us some instructions on how to proceed with that. We had a brief discussion of Policy 2230, which is board committees and standing committees, and it was consensus of the committee to keep the board standing committees in place and possibly adjust the meeting time for the F&T committee meeting at 4 p.m. instead of 5 p.m., which would be certainly more convenient for staff. The next F&T meeting will be on April 25th.
Thank you. The next one is finance, and Dr. Smith will have to give us some information on that too.
Finance Committee, Mr. Chairman, met on February 23rd. Our first item of business was a hearing on Randy Burge with Combined Insurance, who introduced a product this company offers, which is the term life insurance, which is carries a long-term care rider. And incidentally, we do not have anything of that sort available to our employees at this point. Mr. Burge explained the specifics of the policy and stated that the company would need a consensus of employees showing age, gender, position, and income, and we're waiting on Mr. Love to tell us what statutes allow us to provide on our employees. The committee agreed that Mr. Burge could pursue trying to obtain the minimum of 25 contracts as specified in Board Policy 7620, and once he has sold 25 of those contracts and any future contracts could be added under the payroll deduction plan, which would be for the convenience for our employees. Kelly Jones proposed that Anderson, Smith, and Wyke provide our 2017 auditing services. The contract is for a maximum fee of $34,250 plus reimbursement for reasonable out-of-pocket expenses. The committee recommends that we continue our auditing relationship with Anderson, Smith, and Wyke, and that will be item number 4 under new business. At this meeting, we also discussed Policy 2230, which is board committees. We heard particularly from staff, and we discussed the pros and cons of the current committee standings that we have. And here again, the suggestion of moving our committee meetings from 5 o'clock to 4 p.m. For the convenience of our employees was discussed. We were to hear a budget presentation from Dr. Bryan. However, House Bill 13 is still in question and throws a great deal of uncertainty in any budget decisions that we make at this time. Kelly Jones presented our lease agreements and board expenses, which you will find in your FYI portion of your agenda. The next Finance Committee meeting, Mr. Chairman, will be on March the 23rd.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Smith. At this time, we'll go to policy and Ms. Bowen.
Mr. Chairman, the Policy Committee met on February 21st, and we had several policies come back just for review. We're not prepared to present those for anything at this point. They'll be back before our board again in the March meeting. We did have some unfinished business, and with discussion with Dr. Chappell, we have on tonight for the first reading Policy 3565/8307. That's the Title I Program Comparability of Services. And Dr. Chappell, if you'd be so kind, any questions you may have regarding this. It has to do with how we report our Title I funding disbursements, and part of that statute, and I don't want to steal her thunder, but basically part of that statute requires that we not designate all of our Title I low wealth funding to one school, that we equitably equitably allocate those funds. And I'll let Dr. Chappell kind of explain how this policy, which to my understanding has kind of been in action, just hadn't been codified in policy. And with that, I will turn the floor over to her to explain.
Yes, it's about comparability. Our elementary schools are all Title I schools, and the middle and high schools, we do not have any middle or high schools that are Title I schools. So to give you an example, when we purchased our math books last year for grades 1 through 8, we used state funding to purchase the middle school books. So we had to use state funding to purchase the elementary books. We couldn't use Title I funding to purchase the elementary books
Dr.
because
Chappell,
that would not be comparable.
Can you explain to our audience? We understand your lingo, but the audience don't know what Title I fund is. Can you explain to them what the Title fund? Since you say all of our schools are Title I school, can you explain to the audience what Title I school is?
Title I school gets extra money from the federal government, and it comes down through the state, and it's allocated according to the poverty level of the district. And then when it comes to the district level, that extra money goes according to what percentage of students in a school are eligible for free and reduced lunch. And it's a considerable amount of money. It's usually around $3 million extra, and it's used for supplemental extra things, not to supplant what you already were spending money on. And that's what the comparability policy is all about, that you won't spend state and local money at a non-Title I school on something and turn around and use the Title I money to buy that, whether it be teachers or computers or textbooks. Anything that Title I money is spent on has to be something extra at that school, something supplemental. This policy has both the procedure in it and the policy, so it satisfies both of those requirements for Title I, and it did come down from the state school board. I was very glad to see it because it's sort of a complicated subject, and I think they did a good job of putting it into policy.
Are there any questions for Dr. Chappell?
If we have no question,
thank you, ma'am, for being here. Other than that one policy that we have on for first reading, again, like I said, we had 4 policies come before our board, some of which will definitely need some revision in the very near future, probably needed to have been revised yesterday. But we'll get on that and make sure that it's put right in the very near future. Some of it was just open for discussion. But barring any major changes, our next meeting is scheduled for March 28th at 5 o'clock at the Heinz Education Building. And that concludes my report.
thank you. At this time, we will be going to our consent agenda. And on the consent agenda, I want to see if we have any question. Any discussion? If none, I want to close the discussion on the consent agenda. Ask for a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have it. We have a second, and everyone in agreement, say aye.
Aye.
The motion, the consent agenda is approved. Okay. At this time, we will go under the new business. I need a motion for the substance abuse awareness. Oh, okay. Policy 3565, first reading.
The Policy Committee moves that we accept the first reading of Policy 3565-8307 entitled The Title I Program Comparability of Services.
I second that motion.
Okay. Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay. The motion is approved. The next one, substance abuse and awareness for youth state program.
I make a motion that we approve the substance abuse and awareness for youth, the state program.
Need a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion is approved. Thank you. The next one is the number 3, the Height Associate Contract renovation of WB Wicker site.
Mr. Chair, I know everybody has a copy of this contract. I also believe we have a couple representatives from Mr. Height's firm here as well. Mr. Blake Faulkner, architect with the firm, and Mr. Robert Edmondson, who's also a construction administrator. This contract was sent out to the board, and also allowed Mr. Kelly, who was part of F&T committee, also had some conversations with Mr. Height, had Dr. Smith and Mr. Kelly in to listen to Mr. Height talk through the contract a little bit, along with Mr. Love being in that meeting, and also had Ms. Bowen and Dr. Smith to be part of the conversation with Mr. Height as well, to talk through the contract as part of the Finance Committee. So I'll ask Mr. Faulkner and Mr. Edmondson to come forward, if they don't mind. And Mr. Love, I believe before we have any discussion on this, do we need a motion and a second on that?
Yeah, I think you need a motion to one way or another.
A motion and then a second?
Yeah.
And then we can enter into the discussion, is that
Yeah,
correct?
that's right.
Okay. We need a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the Height Associates contract for the renovations at W. Wicker site.
Second?
We have the motion and we have a second.
Which now it begins discussion.
Yes. Now we can have the discussion. Yes.
Mr. Chair, would you like to just have the board member ask questions of Mr. Faulkner and Mr. Edmondson, or would you like for them to say a couple words about the contract? How would you like to proceed?
We just want you to say something about it. And if the board members have any question, you can ask a question. I will limit that question to a few minutes because we still need to some other issues. Yes.
And just so everybody knows, Mr. Height would have been here tonight, but he had a previous engagement with another school district. But I know Mr. Faulkner and Mr. Edmondson are going to do a great job with this. The floor is yours.
Let me just say that I've been a registered architect for 27 years. I've worked on several addition renovation projects like this over the years. In all honesty, I've not worked on the design of this project, but I will be involved in the construction documents preparation, which means getting all the drawings and specifications. Robert will also be assisting with specifications. I'm sorry, that's his area of expertise. My area of expertise is the drawings, working with the engineers. It's not just our firm that will be working on this. There will be mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and structural engineers, as well as civil engineers. And so the contract covers the fees for all of those consultants as well as our firm. But I'm confident that we can handle this project well for you. I'm very experienced in working with both code officials and, as we will have to do on this project, the Historic Commission, because of the original high school building involved. And I'm confident that we can work with those agencies as I've done in the past and bring this project to fruition in a way that's very satisfying to the community.
And as we spoke on the phone the other day, between me and Andy and Lynn, we all sat with Mr. Height at the Historic Preservation and the member of the board, and your team would work together to make sure that we followed the historic preservation requirements and would move forward, and it would be a cohesive group into what the requirements actually are.
Yes.
And that kind of thing. And like you said, you've had experience on that before.
Yes, I have.
and my experience with any type of, whether it be code officials or agencies like the Historic Commission, is to meet with them early. So I assure you, assuming that the contract is approved or contingent upon it being approved, we would be trying to set up meetings soon with those agencies to start reviewing the plans before we get too far into it.
And of course, in our meetings last week with Mr. Height, the first question both days was, do we have enough time to make sure that we are going to be able to occupy this facility by August of 2019?
I'm confident we can do that, yes.
In absence of any question, I will want us to vote on the motion.
Mr. Chair, before we do that, for a point of information, would you mind explaining to the audience a synopsis of the contract that was presented to the board? Because I don't see that anyone has a copy of it at all, in reference to the price and how you're comparable with other contractors that do the exact same thing that you do.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, I really can't answer that because I wasn't involved in the contract preparation. Mr. Height would have to answer that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't
I
feel.
believe the contract, if I can add to that.
Yes, sir.
I believe the contract is at 7%, which I believe is in the neighborhood, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Love, but I think it's in the neighborhood of about 1.5 million. It's about 7%.
So all of the other professionals, are they involved, like you said, the engineers and mechanical, electrical, and all of their consultancy fees?
They are included in that fee, yes.
Okay.
And I know we made a couple revisions thanks to Board Member Bowman that we sent back. And
Yeah, there was one issue in the contract, and through talking it out, it's just simply a wording in the contract that didn't, to me, indicate, let's say we put together a design, and the design is beautiful, I don't expect it to be anything but, and we put it out for bid with this kind of dollar figure in mind that's been discussed with the commissioners and on this board, and then all the bids come out exorbitantly higher. And the commissioners look at us and go, no, not going to happen. That there was a contingency within the contract that said that should all bids exceed the cap that we are given, that the architect will at no cost to the school district to alter plans to bring it back within that budgetary cap, which to me was a very necessary part to have. Without that, essentially, I don't have the experience with Mr. Height that others do, but just in generally saying, it would be entirely possible for him to discover some new technology that would be really fabulous and not take into consideration our budget, and then us just be blown out of the water halfway down the road. A couple of things that really impressed me with the contract is spelled out, I don't have it in a printable form to tell you exactly what page, but the design schedule versus construction schedule, and I had him kind of lay out some of those things. And to my calculations, and I'm no math person, it looked like the schedule is built with at least 6 months of flex in it. If we were talking about starting right now and ending in August of 2019 to get the school open, then we're crossing several potential weather patterns. You know, you're crossing a couple of winters, you're crossing hurricane season, and anything that can put a schedule behind. And I was very pleased to see that there was that amount of cushion, that it's not, if everything falls perfectly, we will have a school in August of 2019. He didn't seem at all afraid to say, yes, this school can open in that time frame, and that was very important to me. I just didn't want it to be, 2021 and us going, really? Where is our school? So those were some of the questions I did ask and get answered, and I was very thankful to have those questions answered.
I'm sorry, Mr.
You
Chair.
go ahead.
Mr. Chair, may I just one other thing about the contract itself? It's actually a contract that's been formulated through the American Institute of Architects, and it's pretty much a standard contract that's used for instances like this, and with, of course, some minor changes that we've already put in place. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I also want to say that I've been on this board for over 7 years, and it's built have some buildings for us built in our system, and I know that Mr. Mr. Height is always on time and well focused on what he does, and I just feel like he's going to do the same thing for us. And actually, when we finish building Lee Senior, I think he built it for us under budget. So, and some money was returned to the system. So we're expecting the same thing to happen this time. So I just want us to know that as we moving forward.
And that was also the case for those of you who don't know. It was also the case at Stanley Middle School.
And Stanley Middle School, and so that's the situation. So in light of what we've heard, I will want to ask that we have a vote on this. I will not want a voice vote. I want us to raise our hand. If all in favor of moving forward with the proposed contract, let's raise our right hand. We have 6. Opposed? Okay. The motion approved.
Mr. Chair, I oppose simply because there was no other bids put in at all. That's why I said that.
Okay. But the motion is approved. And thank you for coming here tonight and coming to explain to us what we're doing. I appreciate that. I want to thank the commissioners too for allowing us to move forward with this, and all of the effort that the Board of Commissioners and the community have put forward. We believe that we're going to be able to not disappoint you, and the school is going to be a great place for the next generation. The school we're building is not just for us, it's for our grandchildren and great-grandchildren. It's for the next generation. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's for later.
Yeah, the next thing on our it is on our number 4 is the audit contract.
On recommendation of the Finance Committee, I make a motion that we approve the 2016-2017 audit contract. And I forgot the name of the,
Smith.
yes, Smith and White, those people.
Okay.
That was a horrible motion, I am sorry.
You want to do that again? Say it again.
I second.
Okay.
I'm not saying that horrible motion.
All in favor?
Somebody might be taking
Aye.
notes.
Yeah, just for notes, just repeat it, just for clarity.
Okay.
Just
Can you
for
repeat
clarity.
it for clarity?
I make a motion, we approve the contract for auditing as selected by the Finance Committee.
Okay, we have a motion. We need a second again?
I second.
Second, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is approved.
That's okay.
At this time, we'll be going to closed session.
I
need a
move that
motion.
Lee County Board of Education go into closed session for the purpose of discussing information that is privileged, confidential, and not public record under North Carolina General Statute Section 143-318.11A1.
Thank you. We have a motion?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Now declare the Lee County Board of Education back in session from closed session. Moving on into the last action items, our new business of personnel.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve a 2-year contract for Evan Roush, AP Assistant Principal at Stanley Middle School, and Francisco Chevarari, I hope it's close, Assistant Principal at Wesley Middle School.
There's a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor by signaling aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I would also like a motion to approve the Human Resources Report as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And finally, in view of there being no further monthly business requiring the board's attention, I move that the Lee County Board of Education cancel the Tuesday, March 14th, 2017 regular monthly board meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. By show of hands in favor of that. And opposed? 6-1. Motion passes. 5, excuse me. 5-1. All right. Seeing no other business or anything to come before this board?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Good night.